Hi everyone, welcome back to Grounded Haven Homestead. Today I am going to be starting my pepper seeds for the year. This is going to be the first really big batch of warm weather vegetable seeds that I'm starting. So far what I've started are my onions and my brassicas, but those are all pretty cold hardy, and now we're finally moving into starting the summer vegetables. Today is February 28th, and for us we are at about 6.5 to 7 weeks before our estimated last frost date, which is a little later than some places will say to start your peppers and eggplant. I think a lot of places will say to start them 8 to 10 weeks before your estimated last frost date, but I find that that's too early and my plants will get too big before they're ready to go out, so I have pushed it a few weeks back over the years. And last year I started my seeds at around this time and it worked out really well, and I'm planning to grow these indoors for a good 8 to 10 weeks, but I won't be transplanting them out into the garden until at least 2 or 3 weeks after our estimated last frost date, just to make sure that they really don't get killed by any late frost, and also to allow more time for the weather to warm up, because peppers really do like very hot weather. So even if it's not freezing but it's still pretty chilly at like 40 degrees every day, I still don't want to be setting out my peppers, so that's why I have moved back my seed starting date to start my seeds around this time. So let me go over the varieties that I'm going to be starting. As usual, I'm going to be growing lots of different kinds of peppers because they are one of the things that I really enjoy playing with the different varieties, and I think I'm going to be starting a similar number of varieties as I did last year. I probably have about a dozen here, and we have both sweet and spicy peppers. So let me go over the sweet ones first. The first one is a shishito pepper. This is a small pepper that is really great for really quick stir frying and for blistering. This is a super productive plant, and if you don't have a lot of space to grow a lot of different kinds of plants, I would definitely recommend growing a shishito pepper as one of the varieties you choose if you can only grow a few, because it will be super productive and you really only need to grow like 2 plants, and that will probably give you enough peppers to feed a family for at least like 1 meal a week. The next pepper is another smaller pepper called korbachi. This is one that I grew for the first time last year and I really enjoyed it. They are kind of like a skinnier pepper and they get kind of like curly and twisted. They are a pretty thin-walled pepper and the skin is a little bit on the thicker side, but I really like them for like quick frying and they have a lot of flavor. They are also very productive and they produce pretty early on, so I really enjoyed that pepper last year. Then I have a new variety that I just got the seeds for this year. This is the lesia pepper. This is supposed to be a smaller pepper but have super thick flesh, and it's supposed to have really good flavor. So I'm really excited for this one and I hope it does well for us. I have heard good things from a few people online about that. Then I have a few varieties of kind of like a bell pepper. First I have a California Wonder. And then I also have the Ruby King bell pepper. I think I've grown the Ruby King before, but have not grown the California Wonder. I'm just going to be doing a few of each, even though they're pretty similar, just so that I can kind of compare them. And then lastly, for my sweet peppers, I have this Edgevarsky pepper, which is one of my favorite sweet peppers that I've grown before. The peppers get really large and they kind of have like a pointed end. The flavor is really incredible. Even when they're green, I find that they have a very like sweet flavor, almost as if they were a red pepper. And if you do let them get to red, they are going to be like the best tasting bell pepper flavor. They're great for roasting, and I think the fruit produces a little bit earlier and more consistently large peppers. The flesh of those is also really nice and thick as well, so that's one of my favorites that I've been growing for a few years now. Next, for the spicy peppers, first I have a jalapeno pepper, pretty classic jalapenos. I'm going to try and grow lots of these this year so that I can pickle them, and also I go through a lot of those for making salsa. Next I have a poblano pepper. This is a little bit of a milder pepper. It's used a lot in Mexican cooking. I also just like to stir fry it because it's pretty mild, so sometimes I cook it almost as if it's a bell pepper, and what I like to do with those a lot of times is stir fry it with some onions and make some tacos or fajita fillings with that. Next I have the Hungarian hot wax pepper, which is like a hot banana pepper. I've only grown sweet banana peppers in the past, but this year I want to do the hot one and hopefully get a lot of those for pickling. Then I have some cayenne peppers, and I grew these last year, and these were really nice. I really liked just putting like 1 or 2 cayenne peppers in my batches of salsa just to make it a little bit spicier. And I also dehydrated a lot of those cayenne peppers and I crushed them up, and I've been using them as crushed red pepper flakes. And I've been going through a lot of those red pepper flakes, so I want to make sure I restock on my supply of those. Next, I have a Korean hot pepper. These are super prolific. Usually with one plant I have more than enough hot peppers, and they are probably like a medium heat. And then I have a pepper that I purchased last year that's called Pasilla Bajo, and these ones were pretty spicy. We tried to eat them just like freshly grilled, and they were way too spicy. They made us cry, but they made for a really good salsa verde. After I like grilled or roasted them up, I would just peel the skin off and puree it with some grilled onions and garlic, and it was really delicious. So those are all the peppers that I've pulled out. Yes, I think I have exactly 12 different varieties, and I always like to start my eggplants at the same time as my peppers. I don't grow quite as many varieties of those because eggplants sometimes can be a little trickier for us to grow and they're not as productive, so I usually just put a few plants in. There also are not as many ways I think to preserve them because peppers freeze really well, and they also go into a lot of things like salsa and sauces, but I find eggplants I just don't need as many to preserve. So I have 2 varieties. The first one, I don't know what it's called, but it is like a longer Asian eggplant. Unfortunately, I don't know what the name is, but I really liked this variety because the plants are not as thorny as a lot of eggplants I've grown in the past. And I really like that because I do always get pricked with the little thorns if I don't grow a thornless variety. So I really like those ones, and they were very productive. Last year, I covered my young plants with some row cover or some frost fabric to keep out the flea beetles while they were young, and I was able to get a really good crop of eggplants, so I'm going to be doing that again this year. And then I also picked up a new variety that I want to try this year called Listada de Gandia, and I honestly just picked this one because it was really pretty. I wanted to grow kind of like an Italian rounder eggplant, but I've tried to grow like the kind of like Black Beauty type dark purple round eggplants in the past, and they have not produced really well. I think this variety is supposed to be a little bit smaller, and usually smaller varieties do produce earlier and a little bit better. You'll get more fruit per plant. So I'm going to be trying that one, and I also just really liked the pretty white and purple stripes on there. And again, if I cover my young plants, I'm hoping that my eggplants will do really well again this year. Last year I also planted my peanuts around my eggplants. They were kind of like a living mulch. They also provide nitrogen for my eggplants because peanuts are a legume that will fix nitrogen from the air into the soil, and that worked really well, so I'm going to be doing that again this year. So those are all the things that I pulled out to start today. So let me write all of my tags for my pots, and then we're gonna go outside and start some seeds. I've got all my plant tags written out, and these are the pots I'm going to be using today. I have these 2-inch pots. These are from Bootstrap Farmer. I think we're going on like 4 years with these pots, and they are holding up really great, so I would highly recommend those. But I have a little bit too much to fit in this one tray, so I just pulled out these thinner plastic, just 4-cell trays. These are going to be for my eggplant, so I'll just keep those separate, but they are all going to go inside afterwards. Today I am using seed starting mix instead of potting soil. just because I had it and I figured why not get the pepper seeds off to a good start. And when we were at the store, I was able to find this seed starting mix that's made from coconut coir, which is a more renewable resource than peat moss, which is what a lot of seed starting and potting mixes are made from, and peat moss is not a sustainable material, so I was happy to find this seed starting mix that was made from coconut coir. So yeah, that's what we're going to be using today. I'm just going to go ahead and fill all of these pots so then I can go ahead and pop the seeds in. So I will be back in just about now. So here we are. I have filled in all of my little cells and I have watered them in so they're nice and damp. I'm just going to go in and make a little divot in each of these and pop probably 2 or 3 seeds in each of these. I really like the feeling of this seed starting mix. It's super light and fluffy, and I think the seeds are really going to like growing in this. The only thing with using seed starting mix is there's no fertilizers included in it, so you do have to make sure you fertilize as soon as your seeds start getting their first few sets of true leaves. And I'm actually going to be showing that today because I brought out my current seedlings because I am starting to harden them off, and I'll be fertilizing them today because I think they're starting to show signs that they need it. The leaves are looking a little bit yellow and all of them have at least their first set of true leaves. These Chinese cabbage plants are already starting to get their second set of true leaves. That's usually about when I start fertilizing. It's going to be a super diluted dose though, so I will show you that. And my goji berry finally sprouted. First tiny little sprout over there. The thyme is also doing very well, and this is the lemongrass. I also brought out the onions that I'm going to be fertilizing as well. They've been growing so quickly. I have to trim them like every few days, and they're doing really well, probably only a few weeks before we transplant them out. So I think a good dose of fertilizer for those will be nice. So let me finish starting my seeds and then I will get to these after. The chickens are out here with me free ranging. They are really enjoying all of the new spring growth. Usually they go right for our garden beds and eat all my plants, but now since there are no plants in the garden beds and there's actually a lot of fresh grass growing, they have really been enjoying actually eating the grass, which is great because then they're not just eating all my plants. So here we are, all the seeds are all planted. These are going to go inside, and after they germinate, they're going to be under the grow lights. So let me move these aside for now, and I am going to get to the fertilizing. So for fertilizer, I use fish fertilizer, and I am just going to dilute this by a lot. I'm not really going to measure it, but I just have a cup here so I can see how much I'm putting in. I'm going to put maybe like half a teaspoon. This stuff is super smelly, so I always try to do it outside when possible. Then I'm going to add some water to this just to mix it up. Make sure that's all diluted and mixed in. And then I'm actually just going to go ahead and pour this straight into my watering can, which has about a gallon of water in it right now. So it's going to dilute it even further. Stir that up a little bit. just because I don't think it was quite diluted enough in my cup, and then I can go ahead and just water over my plants. Fish fertilizer is really good as a foliar feed, so I do try and get it like on the actual leaves of my plants. And I'm just gonna do enough so that the plants absorb it all, because I am gonna bring these back inside and I don't want a lot of leftover fish fertilizer in there because it's gonna be stinky. So those ones are all done. And now let me do my onions. These ones, since I don't have drainage holes, I'm gonna pour it back into my cup just to make sure I don't put too much water, because I don't want to drown my plants. You can see how much the fertilizer has lightened up. It just has the slightest hint of color, so you can see there's like really not a lot in there. This is just because this is my first fertilizer feeding, so I'm keeping it very light to kind of like transition your plants into getting used to having this. You don't want it to be too strong because that can actually burn your plants. And then as I go along, I can make my fertilizer solution a little bit stronger each time. So that's it, and I'm just gonna leave these plants out here for a little bit longer today, since I am hardening them off, but they are doing really well so far. And all my pepper seeds are now planted. I'm just gonna hang out here with the chickens for a little while longer before the sun starts to go down. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you again in the next one.